I never thought a zombie outbreak would happen. It all started feeling off when the rental agency I followed posted a video update. The long police tape had been set up near the Xingshan Hospital metro station at the beauty hospital. When I opened the video, I heard the guy speaking with a thick southern accent. "Whoa, something's up at the beauty hospital. The cops and doctors are all here." I commented from the metro, "Is there a confirmed case?" When I refreshed the feed, the post was gone. Then the agency messaged me. They sent a voice message followed by another one before I even put my headphones in. "Hey, there." Just about to reply when the post vanished, and I didn't delete it. Not sure if it's a confirmed case, but it's real intense with those tactical police around. Your lease is about to end, right? Renewing or not? I frowned, unsure about renewing. The Xingshan Hospital rental is a good deal, with great facilities and low rent. But it's way overcrowded, and every morning's 8 a.m. metro is exhausting. Moving's a hassle, finding a place, moving, plus first month rent deposit and 3 months upfront payment. While I was hesitating, the third voice message came, 59 seconds long, and gave me a headache. The first part was all about how renting's tough in July when students graduate and how I should hurry up to renew for a discount. But the second part got weird. Out of nowhere, there was a scream. The agent cursed, muttering something, followed by a bunch of static and a sudden loud noise. Even with the headphones at a low volume, the noise hurt my ears. I took off the headphones and tried looking towards the hospital from the metro window, but the train was nearly at the next stop, so there was nothing to see. I never got a reply from the agent after sending still thinking about it, which made me anxious. At work, only half the team showed up. Everyone was talking about yesterday's statement from a certain someone, and it seemed nobody knew about the possible confirmed case near Xingshan Hospital. I couldn't shake the screams and the loud noise from my mind. I texted a coworker living near Xingshan Hospital. She replied almost instantly, "Get out of City B quickly." A jolt of fear raced through me, and feeling too sluggish typing, I quickly dialed her number. She picked up right after the first ring, and I could hear the airport announcing boarding. Before I could speak, she spoke fast in a hushed tone, "The city's shutting down at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Run if you can, and stock up as much as you can." The call abruptly ended, and then she sent me a video. It showed Beauty Hospital. The camera panned from the emergency department over to inside the There was a guy in a hospital gown, who got loose for a second from 4 people restraining him and then was controlled again. But in that moment, he tore off a chunk of flesh from someone's arm, and blood was everywhere. 30 seconds in, the restrained guy collapsed, and the video cut off. A creeping terror felt like a punch to my chest. I've never been one to believe random videos online. But now, an uncontrollable word crawled into my brain. I jumped up, told my colleagues with my head down, "Family emergency, need to take leave," and left. I scared my boss, who quickly said something, then gave me a week off, likely thinking of the same thing I was. Brushing aside that unrealistic thought, I used my phone to book a ride and called my dad in the meantime. I told him to drive back to Q City right away, and that I'd be home today. My dad works 400 kilometers away in H City, but with his daughter coming home, he'd drop anything to rush to the airport. He was confused about the sudden visit, but with my ride approaching, there was no time for a lengthy explanation, so we agreed I'd fill him in as soon as I got off. Highways were more packed than usual, and even the driver swore out loud several times. Worrying over the video, I kept turning back to look at the cars, feeling unusually unsafe. But I knew anxiety wouldn't help. I took some deep breaths and shakily searched for direct flights to Q City on my phone. The earliest flight available was at 2:40 p.m. from the capital airport, only one ticket left at over $2,000. I booked it without a second thought. Then I called my mom. Last October, we bought a new 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in Q City, but it was a slow-moving project. It wasn't finished until April this year. Since April, due to outbreaks here, visiting meant a 14-day quarantine, which delayed seeing our new place. When my mom picked up, before she could speak, I got the new address and told her to leave work early as I'd be home today. She outright refused. Being a very rational chemist, she would need a solid reason before disrupting her work. But I'm her daughter. When I mentioned buying loads of groceries including pork ribs that would spoil if not cooked soon, she grumbled about wasting money while joking about leaving early to cook at home. After the call, traffic finally loosened, leading us onto the freeway to the capital. The road was jam-packed, almost like rush hour. I wondered if others had heard something and were trying to escape like me. Time isn't on my side. I opened my delivery app and entered our new address, hoping to order from the nearest supermarket. Q City is a tiny place, an 18-sector city, with only 2 big supermarkets, Sam's Club and Walmart, each in separate districts. Trying to place an order online, I realized there are no large supermarkets nearby at all. My heart sank. I opened the delivery app to look for a grocery store and found a somewhat decent one. I rarely cook, always eating takeout, so I didn't even know what oil I usually use at home. Buying groceries today made me realize how expensive household items can be. I didn't dare buy meat from the store since the prices were outrageous, and the quality was questionable. I figured I'd wait and go to the wholesale market with my parents. I ended up spending over $20,000 in one go. It was because my ride reached the neighborhood, and I thought I should quickly pay and secure some supplies. As soon as I got out of the car, the shop owner called. He double-checked to make sure I hadn't made a mistake before hanging up, sounding suspicious. I looked at the order address, Manchester Complex, Building 12, Unit 1, B1 level. I couldn't help but give myself a mental high five for being clever. I knew ordering such a large batch would catch the owner's attention, so I made sure to avoid where I actually live, Unit 3, 16th floor. I'd rather make an effort to move things myself than create a potential risk for later. Seeing all the ordered supplies, I felt a bit more at ease. I still don't know what we're facing, but instead of relaxing after escaping today, I felt even more alert. What was going on with the patients biting people in the video? A huge metropolis with millions of people, closed off just like that? Why should the most crucial economic and cultural centers be evacuated? Was everything out of control? What's happening to this world? After getting home to my rented master bedroom, I called my family's group video chat. My dad answered instantly. He had his computer set up, waiting for my call, ready to leave after it. My mom took a few rings to answer from the kitchen, hands still wet. Seeing their faces made me lose my composure. My voice trembled, unable to speak. I was never strong, but the devastating truth nearly crushed me. I hesitated to speak, worried they'd treat it like a joke. My dad's brow furrowed immediately. What's up, big guy? What's happened? My mom turned off the tap, waited a couple of seconds, and said, Sweetheart, does this have to do with you suddenly coming back? I nodded, knowing this wasn't the time to delay, struggling to steady my trembling voice. I don't know what happened, but it's bad. The city will be locked down at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I was warned to run and stock up on supplies. I'm really scared, Mom and Dad, please believe me, we need at least a year's worth of supplies. My dad suddenly spoke, Don't worry, we're your strongest support. My mom tried to stay composed, but her furrowed brows betrayed her. Who else would we trust but you? She took a deep breath, removed her apron, and said, Stocking up, right? No cooking from me today. I'll go to the wholesale market, send me what you ordered so I can fill in the gaps. Dad stood up and lit a cigarette. I'll bring supplies from H City too, don't worry, our family will be fine. Just pack and head to the airport, don't miss out. Their trust filled me with warmth. I quickly reassured them, I've already ordered a batch, but it might attract attention, so I left it in the B1 garage. It'll arrive around 8 p.m. Be careful when moving it upstairs. Mom grabbed the car keys ready to head out. Got it, don't worry. Remember how we used to stockpile a ton of veggies every winter? Relax, I'll keep you safe. I nodded, hung up, and tried to calm my trembling limbs, starting to pack. I didn't have much to take from my rented place, just 2 boxes of clothes, my computer, and the meds I'd stocked. No food was coming with me. Despite my flight being at 2:40 p.m., I left at 11 a.m. Normally it's a half-hour drive from the hospital to the airport, but today seemed different. I checked Google Maps, the highway to the airport was a red mess. Quickly, I grabbed my 2 boxes and headed to the subway station. The subway was more packed than usual rush hour. I squeezed my way in, overwhelmed by the intense smell of sweat. I sensed more people knew about the lockdown than I imagined. Sure enough, by the 3rd stop, no more people could get on. Bodies pressed against bodies, heels to heels. I tried looking down from the subway windows. Cars jammed the road to the point of invisibility, like fish on a block, unable to move. Some people even abandoned their cars. Anxiety crept in. With every station we passed, my heart pounded. What if it stops in the middle of nowhere? Once it stopped, I dashed with my 2 boxes. A huge crowd spilled out of the train, and I skipped 3 steps on the escalator. Others rushed to the far elevator, but it filled quickly. More people turned back toward me. I gritted my teeth, heaved my boxes, and walked up step by step. When I got to the airport line, the subway doors were about to close. I tossed 1 box inside, left another behind, and sprinted in, barely making it as the door clipped a bit of my clothes. The airport lines was blasting even colder than line 5. I broke out in a sweat. My box thudded against a pole, leaving a dent. A kind guy handed me the box I was tossed into, and I thanked him. My palms started to hurt afterward. I looked down and saw both hands were swollen from the friction against the box. A dark red rash spread from my palms to my fingertips. I quickly grabbed the cold handrail in the subway, hoping the coolness would help reduce the swelling. The airport express line was silent, but not quiet. The sound of rapid screen tapping filled the air. Everyone was busy sending messages. I quickly summarized the situation in our family group chat and then opened Twitter. After a 3-second splash ad, I was about to search some keywords for the latest updates, but my feed refreshed, and the official subway account I follow posted. A new tweet had just been updated a minute ago. Friendly reminder, to comply with high-speed traffic control, service on the Capital Airport line will be suspended starting at 11:40 a.m. on July 18, 2022, until the last train of the day. The high-speed train emitted a sharp wailing sound as air pressure built up. My scalp tingled at the noise. Amid goosebumps and my jittery nerves, it hit me, this was the last train headed to the airport. Then came more bad news. I focused and searched for the keywords lockdown, Meihao Hospital, and Xingqian Hospital. All Twitter threads were blown up. This kind of cover-up was typical from the big boss. Next, I hesitated for just a second before typing what I really wanted to search. Zombie. When the train arrived at the station, I was in shock. I wiped the cold sweat off my forehead with my arm, grabbed the box, and followed the crowd in a rush out of the car. We all kept a silent understanding as fellow passengers. My hands hurt like fire from carrying the box, but that's the least of my worries right now. My mind was racing with shock far stronger than any physical pain. The adrenaline surge made my eardrums tremble. The truth was terrifying. Once inside the airport, security checks intensified. In addition to needing a green health code and a negative nucleic acid test within 48 hours, I had to fill out a form detailing all the places I'd been, assisted by airport staff. My eyes stung from the sweat dripping into them. The woman supervising me handed me a piece of paper, and I noticed another paper under her arm vaguely showing the word Meihao. My heart skipped a beat. So, I dutifully filled in my company's address, my home address, and any public places I'd recently visited. Finally, my pen hesitated over the section for my current residence. Then, I handed over the completed form. The woman double-checked my form and glanced at the single suitcase I was carrying. She asked me a few simple questions and let me pass. Others weren't so lucky. People behind me were forbidden to board for unclear reasons, and armed police and doctors were even restraining some to take them away. The rest of the security process was smooth, and the lines weren't long. Sitting at gate 43, I finally relaxed a bit. I'd arrived 2 hours early, so there were only a few people around. I found a quiet spot and called my mom. My dad should be driving and I didn't want to distract him. It rang for a while before my mom picked up. Her side was noisy, and she was speaking quickly. I vaguely heard words like half-shank and chicken and frozen meat. She finally turned her attention to me. Hey, sweetie. I'm busy here, just ordered 200 pounds of pork, 100 pounds of beef, 100 pounds of lamb, and 4 chickens. Anything else you want, like chicken wings or drumsticks? I was shocked at her efficiency. I was going to remind her to stock up on some meat, but now I had to tell her to buy solar generators, batteries, and a few more freezers. I'd figure out the rest after doing some more Googling, since my brain was fried from stress. After hanging up, I pieced together a list from various platforms. Once I finished and sent it to our family group chat, my mom replied quickly. I stretched my stiff neck and looked outside. The sky was a deep blue, a rare clear day in the city. I hoped everything would go smoothly. Attention passengers on International Flight CA 1111 bound for Q City, boarding will begin in 15 minutes from Gate 43. Please make sure you have all your belongings." The scattered passengers around me began lining up. I noticed there were really few people on this flight. I wondered if people were unaware of the situation or if it was due to sudden travel restrictions. As the plane took off, I caught a glimpse of someone kneeling and biting something in a corner of the tarmac. Before he disappeared from view, he looked up. We locked eyes for a brief instant, and they were rotting, zombie eyes. Although the flight was smooth, my stomach was in knots. The image of that zombie's severely decayed face replayed in my head. I put down the tray table from the seat in front of me and tried to suppress the urge to vomit. Hang on. Throwing up now would attract attention. 2 torturous hours passed with me continually encouraging and warning myself. Once off the plane, I finally caught a breath of fresh air in Q City, and my knotted stomach began to relax a bit. I didn't expect to find someone else feeling as crappy as me, a middle-aged guy who started puking intensely right there on the tarmac after getting off the plane. I quickly made some distance from him. Besides the terrifying zombies, we also had to deal with COVID, chickenpox, and cholera. Before entering the terminal, I glanced back at him. Some staff and concerned passengers were gathered around him. The dude looked like he hadn't finished throwing up yet. He was hunched over like the letter N and was making this weird haha sound like a broken organ. He didn't seem to be doing too well. As soon as I got out of the airport, I spotted my handsome dad. He quickly took the suitcase from me. At a time when everyone is pretty much on edge, we couldn't help but smile in relief. With the world falling apart, I'm grateful to be around family. Once in the car, I noticed the back seat was jam-packed with stuff from a hardware store. I felt safer immediately. There's something about having a close-knit family that's priceless. After my dad threw my suitcase into the trunk, he got in the car, too. "Kiddo, we can't head home yet. We need to finish gathering supplies today so we can stay home starting tomorrow." I nodded fast, thinking it was the best idea ever. If we can just get all the supplies today, the 3 of us can live comfortably at home for a year, and that boosts our survival chances big time. In that time, we can work out, stay in shape, and wait for help to come our way. If it were just me, I'd be okay. But the thought of my older parents scavenging in this chaos made me wish I had superpowers to protect them. So, Dad and I went into beast mode. I was once again amazed at my dad's buying skills. He snagged stuff I'd never have thought of, like steel wire, chains, deadbolts, and soundproofing material. By the end, I thought we were going a bit overboard. We hit a renovation market just before closing, and my dad ordered top-strength shatterproof glass and doors. Apparently, they were out of stock and needed 3 days to install. My dad threw in some extra cash, and the store manager immediately grinned, ready to install it at our place right away. I didn't have much to say during the whole process, just tagging along behind Dad, pushing the cart. As our pile of stuff grew, my dad was finally satisfied and drove his SUV, taking the store manager and workers to our place. Our community, Manchester, is a new development, with low move-in rates. Only about a dozen families live here now. The complex has 4 main gates, but since it's sparsely populated, only the north gate is open, making it super easy for the movers to come in right next to our building. We spent half an hour getting everything upstairs. The workers were quick, and they switched our door in no time. I took a moment to call Mom to see when she'd be back. She was deep in haggling with a department store clerk over clothes, but told me she'd head home soon as I called. "All right, I'll head back," she said. "Can't get a deal today, so I'll try the underground mall tomorrow." "You win." The seller on the other end relented. "Take it at your price." Mom's face lit up, and while they packed the clothes, I asked, "Mom, what about the meat and the solar generator? When's it coming?" She lowered her voice. "The wholesale market promised to stock the meat directly in our fridge. The fridge and meat seller are the same. The solar generator's here. I had them leave it at 1502's door. I know that place, it's empty, so no one's gonna see." She continued, "The other stuff is stashed on the 20th floor stairwell. Given how few people live above the 20th floor, it's safe there." After hanging up, I went to check out the solar generator on the 15th floor, then snuck up to the 20th floor to compare the delivery list to what got delivered. We got everything delivered, like bottled water, toilet paper, instant hot pot, lime, water barrels, rain collectors, and alcohol. There was so much stuff, it was lined up from the 20th to the 24th floor. Bringing strangers in made me a bit antsy about leaving the goods in the stairwell. I stuck around until the workers finished up, then called Dad to haul the goods. Gathering supplies is exciting, moving them? Not so much. We had barely moved a quarter of the load when Mom got home. Her hands were full with 3 bags, too busy to help us unload. It wasn't until 9 p.m. that we had moved over half. By then, the items I ordered online reached the tiny local store. The delivery guy dumped everything at Building 1, Unit B1. After a quick huddle, we figured we should move those first because they were right in the way and kinda obvious. With handcarts in tow, we rode the elevator to B1 to sort out Unit 1's delivery. I got lightheaded a couple of times, but bringing the stuff home was strangely satisfying. By the time we were dead tired, we downed chocolate bars and kept going. Around 11 p.m., the meat and fridge my mom ordered finally arrived. Our elevator goes to 1 unit per floor, with a sturdy fire door in between neighbors. We thought of having it delivered to the neighbors for convenience. But Mom found it odd to be delivering meat at night, and our doorway and inside was full of supplies we didn't want them seeing. Cautiously, she had them leave it at Building 10, Unit 2's entrance. The delivery guy seemed normal, agreed without fuss. Dad and Mom went from Building 11's B1 to Building 10's Unit 2, coming back with the big cart to haul the fridge home bit by bit. I wasn't just sitting around during this time. I knew after this trip, they'd need a few days to rest their backs. So, I hauled back the remaining supplies from B1 by myself. The whole family was up till 2 a.m., getting everything we'd ordered today home. Now, there are less than 6 hours until B City's lockdown begins. The neighborhood was eerily quiet at night. I couldn't sleep. The house was a mess with all the supplies, nowhere to sit, and tons of stuff waiting to be sorted. While my folks were tinkering with the solar generator, I went to the kitchen to whip up 3 bowls of noodles. I haven't been home for 2 years. I don't cook much, but I've learned a lot from video tutorials. As they say, dumplings before a trip, noodles on return. I pulled out 3 servings of dried noodles. Once the water was bubbling, I tossed in the noodles. I grabbed 3 big bowls and added a spoonful of lard, a sprinkle of green onions, a dash of soy sauce, sesame oil, a bit of chicken powder, and salt. While the noodles cooked, I scooped a big ladle of hot water, pouring it over the bowl of seasonings. The steam hit me with a wave of aroma, making my stomach growl. Once the seasoning mixed with the noodle water, I turned off the heat, scooped the noodles, and it was all done. 3 homemade bowls of plain noodles were ready. I brought them to the coffee table in the living room. My parents, hungry from working on the solar generator, joined me on the floor. We slurped down the hot noodles in no time. My dad even finished the soup, breaking into a sweat with satisfaction. Breaking a sweat felt great, pushing out the cold from our bodies. We rested a bit before getting back to sorting the supplies. We'd pretty much figured out the 5 kW solar generator. The large items left, like the rainwater collector and filter, weren't immediately needed. Despite it being July, Q City's weather forecast showed it cooling down with no rain. We decided to leave those on the balcony until they were needed. Then, my mom laid out the work plan. Mom and I were on food duty, while Dad sorted tools. The rest could wait till tomorrow. Luckily, it's a new house. The study's only got a big bookshelf since we hadn't gotten a computer desk yet, saving us space. Plus, the spare bedroom only has a double bed. The custom furniture won't arrive until next month. At this rate, I won't need it when I come home in October. With little need to rearrange furniture, we sorted everything by early morning. Finished way ahead of schedule. But since the house is only 180 square meters, with all these supplies, there's barely room to walk besides the resting area I set up in the living room. The whole place feels like a huge warehouse. With over 2 hours until B City's lockdown, none of us were sleepy. Dad mopped the floor, Mom started sprouting seeds, and I fed the 4 hens Mom brought back from the market last night. The hens were kept on the kitchen balcony with a door. Besides the chickens, there were piles of soundproof foam and even an air purifier. After feeding them, once the doors closed, you couldn't even hear a rooster crow. The sun was up, and I took the opportunity to fill water barrels, then checked my social feed. I expected some insider info, but yesterday everyone's posts seemed blissfully ignorant. Only a few had checked in overseas, posting cryptic reflections. In this piece, we had Mom's sandwiches for breakfast. They had a slice of tomato, a fried egg, and bacon. One bite, and the juices burst in my mouth, making me feel sleepy. Bang. A loud crash. It startled my drooping eyelids wide open. Before I realized what was happening, I heard a blood-curdling scream outside.
Ah!
I couldn't tell if the scream was male or female, but it pierced my ears. Windows of the few occupied apartments popped open throughout the complex. Some peeked out to see what happened, while others pulled curtains shut to keep sleeping. Amid the chaos, with an unconscious vomit sound, the sleeping neighborhood was now wide awake. The crunch of bones echoed like a haunting melody across the vacant area. People shouted to call 911, others hurled things down to hit the monster. Hiding behind the curtains, I fixated on the decaying figure gnawing on a human. Not far off, dozens of zombies howled and raced toward us. Checking my phone, the news was flooded with announcements, lockdown for 24 cities nationwide. It was B City time, July 19, 2022, 8:01 a.m. Zombies wandered below, shrieking non-stop. I regretted staying up all night. Now I was exhausted. The power and internet were still up for now, and we charged 10 of our 50 power banks overnight, swapping them out to continue charging. Mom opened her laptop, downloading classic movies and shows. Dad silently smoked 3 cigarettes, pulling out some wire and pliers from the study, listening for noise by the security door. I got what he meant. Zombies might not break in just yet, and looters hadn't emerged. Today, he planned to fortify our floor's fire escape door with wire mesh for safety. Our building's elevator only stops where it's keyed for. There was no noise outside, but better safe than sorry. After a while, Dad made his move. He intended to go alone, but I grabbed a kitchen knife, following him, as we pushed open our door. The hallway was silent, and who knew if anyone was even living here now. Following a video guide, we tied military knots with the wire. When someone tries to break in, this military-grade knot is practically impossible to undo, whether brute force or finesse. It can only be undone by people on the inside. Regarding the fire door between us and the empty apartment next door, my mom said we shouldn't leave any vulnerabilities. So, my dad and I secured the fire door by the opposite staircase with a knot and hung some locks on the door between us and the neighbors. After locking the doors, I went back inside to grab a piece of chocolate and started observing the zombies downstairs. Movies are one thing, but I couldn't rely entirely on them to gauge the situation with these creatures right outside our building. The person who got attacked and eaten this morning has already joined the ranks of the zombies. It seems zombie viruses spread through saliva and blood. Right now, these zombies don't seem to possess much intelligence and are currently wandering aimlessly. After Mr. Vomit was done puking this morning, the zombies somehow sensed it and gathered near his building, Unit 10. This suggests that hearing and smell may help them locate people. We bought really thick curtains early on, and we ensured they were drawn tightly last night after installing new windows. Not everyone was as lucky. Some neighbors had semi-transparent curtains that made everything inside visible. After observing the zombies, I grabbed a pen and started recording the occupancy situation of our apartment complex. Starting with Unit 10 directly opposite us, at least 3 families live there. Unit 10, Building 1, Apartment 702 houses an elderly couple. Unit 10, Building 3, Apartment 9111 is occupied by a college student home for the summer as per my mom's input. Unit 10, Building 4, Apartment 502 is where Mr. Vomit stays. It's unclear how many people live there. Moving on to Building 14 behind us. I watched all morning, but no sign of anyone. For now, that's the situation with these 2 buildings. I'll note any new findings later. After a series of yawns, my dad suggested taking a family nap. Though sleeping soundly during the apocalypse without a lookout sounds dangerous, we prepared quite a bit in advance. Plus, we locked the stairwell this morning, so given the current status, a good nap shouldn't hurt. I slept deeply until I was startled awake by urgent knocking at the door. As I opened my eyes, I was greeted by darkness, but the air smelled off. A strong metallic scent seemed to permeate the room. I covered my mouth and nose, but the stench on my hand made me gag immediately. Groping around with sticky fingers, I finally found my phone. The dim light from the screen helped my vision a bit. Just inches from my face was a highly decayed zombie staring right at me. That moment sent shivers through my soul. I recognized those eyes. A day ago, I saw them at the B City airport. My mom shook me, slowly pulling me from my nightmare. Those dreadful eyes were gone, and the nightlight was casting a soft orange glow in the room. My limbs felt heavy like lead, and I actually wondered if those zombies in my dream had gnawed them off. My mom placed a cool towel on my forehead and slipped a few pills down my throat. Warm water flowed down, revealing my sore throat. Half asleep, she fed me a few spoonfuls of porridge. I had no appetite and fell back asleep after a few bites. I slept through the entire day, waking up a few times to take medicine and get wiped down with alcohol. When I fully woke up, it was the afternoon of the 20th. I learned that after I slept, I ran a high fever through the night. With 2 days of constant stress, including the fear from traveling and an all-nighter to organize supplies, I, having weak stamina, was the only one to fall ill. Turns out, I had a harder time coming to terms with the zombies than my parents. Determined to get stronger after recovery, I swore to start working out and not be this frail again. Thankfully, we were well stocked with medicine. My mom stayed up, using alcohol and cold towels to keep my fever down, so it didn't turn into something worse. Though the fever had subsided, my throat was still sore, and my head throbbed due to the earlier high temperature. After regaining consciousness, I washed my face and ate some porridge with our homemade pickled eggplant, finally shaking off the dizziness. With my mom now resting, I began monitoring the zombies downstairs again. A day went by, and the number of zombies between buildings 10 and 12 remained at 11, suggesting no new zombies in the complex. Possibly due to the outbreak, the residents seemed to have ample supplies. I'm sure everyone's watched plenty of zombie flicks by now, so no one dared venture outside. These zombies are tricky. They seem to exist without needing energy like humans, showing no interest in stray cats either. Most importantly, they aren't afraid of daylight. Any sound, they zone in for the attack, a testament to their heightened sensitivity to noise. News reports say cities were locked because of a mutation strain in the virus, posing a huge transmission risk. This explanation didn't surprise me, but I wondered how many people were left in the dark about it. In the following days, zombies in the complex didn't intake any energy and began losing their initial agility. Eventually, Building 14 showed signs of life. The man in Unit 2, Apartment 1602, facing my place, began sticking notes on his window as I observed with binoculars. I called my dad over and we managed to make out his shaky message, desperate for supplies. Give or don't? That was the million-dollar question. While wrestling with this dilemma, the man seemed to have fainted, lying still against the window. Our family end, we decided to give some supplies but not too much. LY quickly held a short meeting. Maybe it was the hope in our hearts, thinking aid was on the way. NTH. We all get the idea of don't flaunt your wealth. In the apocalypse, 2 packs of compressed biscuits and 2 chocolate bars easily saved a life. How long he can hold out is up to him. We can't support him forever, not with how unpredictable people can be these days. I felt relieved though, after deciding to give him supplies. But figuring out how to deliver them was another issue. Our building is about 50 meters from Building 14, and there's no way we could throw them over. Risking our lives to deliver them personally was out of the question. Just then, a drone from who knows which apartment in our building flew by, carrying 2 packs of instant noodles. Clearly, we weren't the only ones who noticed his plea for help. The drone operator seemed new to this. The drone almost lost its balance several times before it managed to land on the window ledge of Building 14's 16th floor. The fainted guy was still slumped by the window, and his companion finally grabbed the supplies. The drone's buzzing attracted some zombies. They got excited and moved toward Building 14. When the drone headed back, they followed it to our building, number 12. Their hearing has gotten sharper. The drone's owner seems to live a few floors below us. These days, it almost felt like we were the only ones left in this building. The guy who fainted earlier woke up, hunched over, holding his stomach, and closed the curtains with one hand. Building 14 turned quiet again. That night, it was my turn to keep watch. My parents were asleep. I was reading, but then heard a weird noise. Creak. I turned off the nightlight, put my book down, and listened carefully. As the strange noises continued, I pressed my ear to the floor. The sounds vanished. Something wasn't right. I stayed in that position for a few minutes. Besides the ticking clock, the world was silent, like I was the only one left. I knew this wasn't the time to let my guard down. Just as I was about to wake my dad, I heard muffled cries from below our balcony. That sound jolted me awake. I crawled to the window, lifted a corner of the curtain, and peered down. Glass shattered below on the 14th floor, making the night even more chilling. A woman, her face covered in blood, was being strangled by big hands, half her body hanging out of the window. Broken glass glistened on her flailing arms. Suddenly, she looked straight at me. She saw me. She opened her mouth, but then closed it. Though I couldn't read lips, I understood. She was roughly shoved out the window, falling hard, her head twisted as she stared in my direction till the end. The zombies, starved and frenzied, dashed forward to devour the bloodied mess below. The night had torn open, and some of the sleeping were startled awake. But there was a silent agreement in the dark, no one turned on their lights. I stood frozen, teeth chattering, no muscle mine, nearly cramping below the knees. Clawing at the wall, I slowly dropped to the floor. Moments later, the sound of glass crunching underfoot emerged. I picked up my sweat-dampened phone, using the rear camera through the curtain's gap to look at the 14th floor. A figure appeared in my viewfinder. Half his body leaned out the window as he scanned the area, eyes pausing on our direction. We locked eyes through my phone screen. Just when I thought he noticed me, he moved his gaze away, focusing on other apartments. I had a bad feeling about this. He seemed familiar. When my parents woke and asked what was happening, it finally hit me who he was. The guy in 14th building, apartment 1602, the one who took our downstairs neighbor's instant noodles. The thought that he might have killed the one who helped him chilled me. After I shared the story, my parents couldn't sleep either. Dad was convinced the victim was our kind neighbor. Mom's hairs stood on end at the thought, if the neighbors hadn't helped first, it might have been us. She fearfully said, in these times, even doing good can lead to danger. We were all heavily burdened by the brutal reality of the apocalypse, laid bare before us. You can't test people's nature anymore. It's the first lesson since the outbreak began. We couldn't wallow in fear, though. We had to be vigilant and deal with this killer. His target wasn't just one family, everyone in Building 12 was in danger once he broke in. How did he get from Building 14 to ours? With all those zombies outside, avoiding them seemed impossible. We hadn't sent him supplies because we didn't know how to cross between buildings. It felt like I was missing something. I went over my notes since the outbreak and realized no one had left the complex. No one's going out, which probably means nothing new is happening. Our neighborhood's underground parking requires scanning the owner's license plates to get in, but special vehicles get special treatment. So, if no one's been driving out lately and nobody's let any zombies into the building, chances are those zombies can't get into the underground garage either. And if zombie infection only spreads through contact, that garage is probably the safest place right now. The resident in Building 14 might have realized this too and took the risk of coming in through the underground garage. But everything I'm saying is just a guess. If anything changes, my theory's shot. Crossing that parking lot is still real risky, and if it were me, I wouldn't risk my life like that. That guy's a daredevil with a death wish. In the end, we all decided I should get some sleep, Mom would keep watch, and Dad would reinforce our fire door with another layer. Since we're all holed up here together, no one's breaking through our fortress. The next day, just as we figured, the guy wasn't satisfied with the supplies from 1402 and started searching each floor. He was slick, climbed up to the 26th floor first, and began working his way down. I know no one's living above the 20th floor. He had all day to check it out. I thought he wouldn't reach us until 4 or 5 in the afternoon, but by 2:30, I heard shuffling noises. He was here. I pressed my ear against the door, catching hints of him picking the lock and his giddy, stifled breaths. Fack. 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 He cursed for a whole 10 minutes. Mom tried to cover my ears, but I found it funny and backed away. Little did she know, before the apocalypse, I was a seasoned gamer with a fast mouth. If it weren't for our current predicament, he'd probably be the one covering his ears outside. His tools were no match for our reinforced fire escape door. Even if he got in, he'd face the top-tier explosion-proof door we installed the night before everything went down. I looked out the window, spotting zombies gathering under our building thanks to all the noise. The guy seemed to run out of curses, and things went quiet. Watching the zombies below, a wild idea popped into my head. It beat in my chest, surfacing with growing urgency. Who says being trapped inside makes you a sitting duck? Mom, from her initial worry, was now unbothered. Even as the guy stuck around, she called me to the kitchen for dinner prep, and Dad stood guard in the living room. We all knew a full stomach's key to dealing with trouble. In the kitchen, I mostly helped out. Tonight we were having ribs. I rinsed them, got rid of the blood. When Mom wasn't looking, I poured the bloody water into an empty water bottle. Then put the ribs in the pot with cold water, let it boil, skim off the froth with a spoon, and used chopsticks to transfer them to a plate once they were cooked. At this stage, they just looked like plain cooked meat, nothing special. Hadn't tasted meat in days, so even without seasoning I was salivating. Mom heated some oil, added scallions, ginger, and garlic for flavor. While she tossed the ribs in, adding cooking wine, soy sauce, I sneaked off to stash the potion bottle in the bathroom. With that sorted, I returned to see the ribs fully colored. I added some pre-boiled water, sealed the pot's lid, and let it boil hard. Outside, the man had finally tired out. Before leaving, he cursed, threatening us. I went back to the living room, trying to catch a glimpse of him through the window. Next thing I knew, he swaggered into 1402's spare room. Upon seeing me, he even threw an empty bottle our way. Of course, it didn't hit us or even make it to the 15th floor. But I flinched at his sudden move. He smirked, satisfied, then made a rude gesture. The woman's dying lips formed in my mind, run. Unfazed, I pretended to be scared. My hidden fist clenched tighter. His excitement grew, he pointed to his eyes with 2 fingers, then pointed at me. I stared his way once more, then turned and drew the curtains shut. Outside, zombies fought over the dropped water bottle, tearing it into shreds. They were starving. The ribs, once done, smelled heavenly. Just the aroma made my mouth water. When others had to make do with instant noodles, we were feasting on a delicious plate of ribs. Maybe this meal was my whole purpose in coming to this world. When the glistening rice hit the table, my parents dug in, and I eagerly picked up a rib. Just a gentle bite and the meat fell off the bone, rich yet not greasy, tender but not dry. It was perfect. I dove into a mouthful of plump, chewy rice, blending with the meat. If I had a health bar, this meal would have fully restored it. Finally, each of us downed a serving and a half of rice, soaking up the ribs' rich gravy, fully satisfied. After the meal, Dad took up dishwashing duty. I played with music I'd downloaded earlier on my phone. The garbage, piling up and starting to stink, was drawing flies. I suggested we might start tossing some downstairs. Mom agreed, knowing we couldn't just let it keep piling up. Now rooftop tossing isn't a worry, it's all dead folks down there anyway. I grabbed a full trash bag and opened the living room window, locking eyes with 1402's guy. He was staring at our place, plotting something no doubt. When he saw me, he gave his grin, showing yellowed teeth. I smiled back. Before he could wise up, I grabbed the trash bag from the bathroom and chucked it his way just like he'd thrown the empty bottle. Only difference, mine wasn't empty. He threw things up from below, and I smashed things down from above. Watching him furious and covered in garbage, I officially said, "Hi," to him. After the greeting, I quickly shut the window and drew the curtains. My goal to provoke him was accomplished. Now it was time to wrap things up. I grabbed 2 bottles of rib blood that I had prepared in advance from our bathroom. I sneaked out of the house, taking advantage of my parents still being busy. Just as I opened the door, I heard him storming out from the ground floor. I timed it right and called the elevator when he would open the 14th floor stairwell door. The elevator was on its way up from the 1st floor, but the guy had already reached our floor by the stairs. It worked out perfectly. I was worried he'd intercept the elevator on the 14th floor, but now he was pounding on our door on the 16th floor, problem solved. As the elevator numbers changed, my adrenaline kicked in and my palms got sweaty. Amidst his cursing and kicking, the elevator finally arrived. I grabbed the bottles, tiptoed silently into the elevator, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Once inside, I swiped my card and selected floor 1. The elevator descended smoothly. The building entrance, as I expected, showed no signs of being breached. I had taken notes on the zombie patterns and numbers outside over the past few days. There were only new ones, none less. This confirmed my theory that the zombies hadn't made it inside yet. Plus, nobody had left the building lately. Everyone's watched zombie movies, nobody wants to play the hero. What the killer on the 14th floor could exploit, I could too. The zombies were starving. Anyone dumb enough to step out would immediately get caught, devoured before they could even turn, leaving no chance of returning alive. First, I swung open the stairwell's emergency door and poured a bottle of blood all over. Then, I carefully moved towards the main entrance with the other bottle and my phone. His yelling and door banging faintly echoed, and although the zombies weren't right at the entrance yet, they were close. I placed the open bottle on the ground, then carefully turned the door lock. Click. The sound of unlocking was annoyingly loud in the quiet neighborhood. A few zombies turned their heads, slowly creeping toward me. I took a deep breath and cracked the door open inch by inch. The squeal of the door caught their attention, making them howl frantically. Sweat beaded on my nose as I drizzled the open bottle's contents through the crack, then squeezed my phone through and started playing Jingle Bells. I bolted. With the merry tune in the background, zombies were drawn by the scent and sound, scrambling to squeeze through. My hands were trembling but focused, and I swiped the elevator card to the 16th floor. As the doors closed, the zombies charged. Their stench seeped through, hitting my nose and throat. I clutched the elevator rail, retching until my eyes watered. Once the elevator reached the 16th floor, I clutched my stomach and hurried outside. The man was still cursing, hammering the fire door into a dent. I gave it one last glance before heading inside. Soon, screams echoed through the building. My parents quickly realized what I'd done. It was the first time in over 20 years that my dad teared up in front of me. He couldn't understand where I found the courage to face the zombies and kill her alone. He couldn't fathom why such a dangerous task fell on me instead of him. He didn't scold me for the risky behavior or lament the man's death. After hearing my plan, he simply returned to his room in silence, which hurt more than any reprimand. That night, my mom was on watch. Unable to sleep, I joined her to chat. The stars above the neighborhood were especially bright now that human activity had decreased and the sky cleared. She looked at me, knowing I had something to say. Under her gaze, I struggled to speak. Expressing love for family is hard for everyone. Sweetie, was your plan today really foolproof? My mouth opened, and out came a lie, of course. I'm not dumb enough to risk my life for fun. Her stare made me uneasy. I knew my plan had flaws. If zombies grabbed me before I got in the elevator, or if the man noticed the changing numbers from the 14th floor, I'd be done for. High reward, high risk, I never intended to involve them. She looked out at the zombies, then back at me. Do you see your dad and me as people who need protection from you? I stayed silent. Watching you risk yourself, especially to protect us, is the cruelest thing for parents. Did you consider there were 2 people asking for food? What about the other one? I had no comeback. I'd assumed he was alone since killing the family on the 14th floor. Sweetie, beyond being your parents, you need to learn to cooperate with others. She was serious. We're not burdens. My dad stepped out. We have to survive together. A month flew by. Since late July, Q City lost water and power. At first, it was bearable, but more people left the building for supplies as time passed. We recorded 13 residents, only 5 made it back. While others were worried about food and water, I felt really lucky. My mom cooked meat twice a week, and every meal was a masterpiece. By late August, it's scorching hot in Q City. We only had 2 solar generators at home, so to save power, we didn't use the AC or fans. Instead, we used fans manually to stay cool. During the day, I'd just hang out in shaded spots. At night, I'd stay up and open the windows for some relief from the heat. After another 2 weeks, just when I thought I was getting used to the heat, a big storm hit one night in September. It came out of nowhere, pouring down like someone dumped a bucket of water on us, making it impossible to sleep. After 2 days of relentless rain, it stopped. Then we had a week of drizzling rain. By the time I was trying ginger tea for my knees, it finally stopped. The drainage system in the north wasn't as good as in the south. We'd never experienced rain like this before. Continuous rain left the first floor submerged and the second floor at risk. I worried the building might collapse, but my mom reassured me it probably just shortened the building's lifespan. That calmed my nerves a bit. The zombies downstairs disappeared, sunk in the water, unsure if they were dead or alive. The day after the rain stopped, someone couldn't wait and tossed a bunch of trash into the water. The zombies didn't react, so the person built a makeshift raft and bravely went out for supplies. He came back late, excitedly bringing back the whole raft's worth of supplies. It took him and his companions over 10 minutes to carry everything in. 2 days later, with no zombie movement, more people ventured out. The water level had dropped a bit, revealing the tops of the zombies' heads. The 5 who had successfully gone out before risked it again with their tiny rafts, forming a team. Our family kept living our own little paradise, not leaving our self-built fortress as long as the zombies were around and we had enough supplies. Plus, there were still zombies I'd let into the building before. The ones outside got flooded, but inside, they still occasionally scratched at the doors. When the group returned, it was dark, and the water level had dropped even more, fully exposing the zombies' heads. With lower water, the rafts couldn't carry as much weight with people and supplies. They didn't dare walk through the water, so they took fewer goods. In the dim light, shadows danced around. I felt like the zombies downstairs were watching them. It was just a feeling since the zombies' eyeballs had totally rotted away. It didn't make sense scientifically. But it felt like the zombies underwater were different from before. The group quickly hauled in their stuff and headed upstairs, arm in arm. They only had enough supplies for one person for 3 days, so I figured they'd go out again the next day. Sure enough, early the next morning, a big group formed in the community garden. This time, 11 people showed up, each with a small bamboo raft. Men and women alike, and even the elderly couple from Building 10 joined in. My mom made some dumpling soup for breakfast. I took a bowl to the balcony, watching them through the curtains as I sipped. Around 9:30, 2 more people joined, a man and a woman, both in matching workout gear. They seemed like the leaders. The water level had dropped to the zombies' chests. After a head count, they got ready to leave. That's when everything suddenly went wrong. The zombies, which had been motionless in the water, lunged forward with speed I'd never seen before, charging the group. The leader reacted fast, slicing off the lead zombie's head. But the others weren't so lucky. The elderly couple was the first to fall. Quickly, the group's leader was taken down by an even faster zombie. Then 5, 7, 10, 13. Eventually, the small garden turned into a bloody slaughterhouse. Blood mixed with the murky, muddy water. The community grew silent, as if nothing had happened, except for the heavy smell of blood choking me. The remains of what used to be people lay scattered in the water. The empty garden. Waterlogged wild grass. Like tombs witnessing the massacre. The wind blew through the empty complex. Suddenly, I noticed the zombies all looking in one direction. Following their gaze, I saw a massive, strong zombie. Its eyes didn't have the usual vacant look. The other zombies surrounded it as it entered the garden, almost like it was admiring its victory. I realized then. It was an intelligent being. The zombies in our neighborhood have evolved, and there's a leader now. I told my parents what I observed. Considering the zombies were evolving, I categorized them as Phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 1 zombies were from the early days of the apocalypse, lacking intelligence. Phase 2 were the ones that slaughtered the community residents. Their physical abilities were fully upgraded, with some intelligence. Phase 3 could lead other zombies and even have emotions. If not eliminated, further evolution is likely, leading to Phase 4, 5. This was bad news. We had lost touch with the government above for a long time. I had no idea what had become of the world. When would someone come to save us? I began doubting humanity's guaranteed victory. The zombies downstairs pretended for another week before judging there was no more food and headed towards the city center. Our family finally relaxed as the last zombie left the community. But then a deep loneliness wrapped around me. The world felt too quiet, like only the 3 of us were left. My mom noticed I was down and gave me the task of growing veggies at home. I planted seeds, as if nurturing hope for humanity. Some of the potatoes we bought earlier have sprouted. I decided to plant them with this batch of veggies. I used a knife to dig out the sprouted parts and buried them in mineral water bottles filled with soil. Once the leaves grew, I dug out the roots with soil and placed them in larger cardboard boxes along with other successfully sprouted seeds. Every 20 days, I fertilized this batch. I cut off any emerging buds to prevent the plants from getting malnourished. Seasons changed, and by the 4th fertilization, it was already early January 2023. While other veggies had matured, the pots were completely overtaken by small potatoes. I pulled them all out, froze a few in the kitchen, stored some in the fridge, and brought the rest inside. Inside, I jumped on the bed, tossed the potatoes, and snuggled back under the covers to fend off the shivers from the cold. The charcoal fire in the house was burning well. My parents were on the bed watching downloaded episodes of Game of Thrones. Ever since winter started in Q City, the temperature dropped sharply. We all moved into one room to save on charcoal. When awake, we opened the windows once every hour for ventilation. If we were sleeping, we'd put out the fire and turn on the electric blanket. Except for the main bedroom and the patio where we grew veggies, the rest of the house felt like a freezer. We had no way of checking how cold it actually was, but it seemed even colder than previous years. Just stepping out of the room with the fire made my nose and ears feel like they were about to freeze and fall off. Today is Shaohan, colder than yesterday. Our custom is to have laba porridge today. Eating just laba porridge is too simple. Winter is also a good time to eat lamb to fight off the cold. Unable to do anything fancy, we went with the easiest option, hot pot lamb. Last night, Mom soaked our remaining glutinous rice, koik seeds, mung beans, and red dates on the bedroom table. She also cut 4 pounds of lamb for today. Whenever I got back, they started cooking. These days we cooked in the main bedroom. If in the kitchen, within a minute, the water for cooking would freeze over. Mom put the ingredients for laba porridge and rice with mineral water into the rice cooker. I typically didn't like laba porridge. I didn't have a sip last year either. But this year is different. Everything in the porridge is precious since the zombie outbreak made us value food more. Making laba porridge was straightforward, so we started prepping for the hot pot meal. I peeled potatoes next to the trash bin. Dad bundled up and went to the freezer for our homegrown green onions, ginger, garlic, cilantro, mushrooms, Dr. greens, yams, and radishes. Returning, he fetched corn, bamboo shoots, hot pot meatballs, dipping sauces, frozen tofu, sauerkraut, and the lamb cuts Mom prepped yesterday. I washed all the veggies and got out the electric pot, adding mineral water, onion chunks, ginger slices, and dates. Mom had already cut the veggies, so we arranged everything and retreated to our blankets, watching the water start bubbling. Steam rose, and it felt like a facial at a spa. I got sleepy. The Game of Thrones playing on the phone turned into background noise for the hot pot meal. Once the water boiled, Mom put in a big plate of lamb. I followed with meatballs and frozen tofu. Soon, the room was filled with aroma. I ate a piece of meat with sauce and was speechless for a moment. We quickly devoured the first pot of meat, so I added another plate, along with sliced potatoes and sweet potatoes. The tofu from earlier was ready to eat, and I nibbled it coated in sauce. Dad handed me some soft cabbage. Tearing it into strips and dipping them, the cabbage melted in my mouth. We were sweating as we ate, and I ended up shedding my sweater. I felt like steam could leave my head if I left the room. In the end, I ladled a bowl of soup. The clear broth had meat's umami, veggies' freshness, and sauerkraut's unique flavor. I felt enlightened finishing it. Afterward, Mom put the leftover soup in a large bowl outside to freeze. Still feeling warm, Dad and I exercised. I did 30 push-ups, 15 plank minutes, and 60 mountain climbers, once hard challenges that had become easy. We drank laba porridge instead of eating anything else, to not burden our stomachs. When finished, Mom checked the calendar, it was 17 days to New Year's. Q City saw heavy snow overnight. The ground was pure and white. At 3 a.m., a loud boom from downtown woke us. A red glow mixed into the dark sky, like splattered paint. I had a feeling zombies evolved again. After that noise, the rest of the night was filled with booms and explosions. Unable to sleep, our family stayed up all night. The commotion was much bigger than usual. By 9 a.m., it started to quiet down. After breakfast, I hesitated and said, with such big explosions, could the military be coming now? My parents stayed silent. Having that thought was like planting a seed of hope in my heart. It kept itching me now and then. But hope is precious in this post-apocalypse. It left me scared, fearing it was just my imagination. Soon, answers arrived. A week later, 3 heavy-duty military trucks drove into our neighborhood. Since the last zombie evolution, the neighborhood had no signs of life, and we lowered our guard, ending night watches. The loud noise from the locked gate woke me up. I wrapped myself in my puffer jacket and peeked through the curtains, noticing strangers entering the neighborhood. As soon as the gate shut, 4 men got out of a heavily armored vehicle and headed straight for Building 10, right by the north gate. I rubbed my hands and stamped my feet to keep warm, watching about a dozen people get out of the car. 4 of them were carrying a stretcher into the building. Someone was hurt. This Lunar New Year felt totally flat. About 2 weeks ago, these newcomers started settling in our neighborhood. The sheer amount of supplies they had was off the charts, and I knew immediately they were up to no good. I guess they figured no one lived here in Manchester, the only new neighborhood developed last year in Q City, after the zombies broke out 6 months ago. A week later, they skipped doing a careful search and started raiding the neighborhood for supplies. Building 10 was hit first. I recognized one guy they tossed from the 5th floor as the vomit dude. He'd already frozen solid, and when he hit the ground, he shattered into several pieces. I couldn't bear to look, but it seemed like this had become some twisted form of entertainment for them in the apocalypse. They took a whole day to search the 5 units in Building 10, and they actually found some food and meds. I remembered it was leftover stuff from a team that went out to gather supplies when it rained. With their raid, the last traces of us residents were being wiped out. All those sleepless nights scavenging and terrifying moments were crushed. My fingertips went numb, I didn't even have time to mourn. I knew with the way these guys were searching, it was just a matter of time before they'd erase all traces of us next. When they'd find the locked stairwell, we'd have no escape left. All day, we survived on compressed biscuits, not daring to light any coal for fear of being found. Building 10 was brightly lit, with faint music playing. The newcomers seemed to have zombie fighting power and weren't tiptoeing around the apocalypse. Compared to their relaxed vibes, the tension in our home was suffocating. I racked my brain for anything we could use, but after running through scenarios in my head, it all seemed hopeless. I refused to die just like that. When I escaped from City B back to Q City, I built this survival fortress determined to make it through. If there are no conditions, make some. I closed my eyes, a plan forming in my mind. Our windows and doors were sturdy, made from top-notch bulletproof and blast-proof materials. Even if these guys got violent, it could hold out for a couple of hours. But our combat power was weak. We only had knives and pliers, nothing compared to their firepower. I had the strongest shield, but no sharp spear. Spotting a problem means fixing it. If I lacked strength, I'd borrow it. Like maybe using those zombies that caused the downtown explosion a while back. Soon, in the dark, my parents and I crafted a makeshift rope using bed sheets. I tied one end around myself and handed the other to my folks. For mobility, I just wore a sweater and shook off my puffer jacket to brave the indoor cold. The window hadn't been opened for ages and was frozen shut. I struggled to pry it open a bit by bit. The wind outside was bone-chilling. The window opening made a dull screech in the night air, fading into the howling southern winds. Luckily, it wasn't too loud. I squatted on the window ledge for a whole minute before stepping out. Transferring from inside to out had me so cold I couldn't even shiver. No time to adjust, I squatted down immediately, gripped the rope, lowered myself, and slowly went down. The bedsheet rope creaked, but I wasn't scared. In fact, I felt a rush of excitement on that thrill ride. 3 minutes later, I reached the 14th floor, the broken window within reach. I planted my foot on the ledge, covered my face with my arm, and slipped inside. The room was trashed. Dried bloodstains from a fight barely visible against the dark brown floor. It took me a moment to remember it was the home of the woman pushed from the building. I quickly opened the bedroom door, scanning for my target this time. Things went smoother than expected. The drone we used for delivering supplies was on the dining table, though frozen and dusty. I didn't know if it would still work. Gathering the drone accessories, I went back to the bedroom, tugged the rope twice for my parents. The rope wiggled, and I tied the drone and charger to send them up. Watching it move up bit by bit, I finally exhaled a breath I didn't know I was holding, feeling my back's frozen numbness. 2 minutes later, the rope appeared again. I tied it to myself, moved to the window's edge and started climbing up. Going up was harder than down, it took a solid 20 minutes to safely return to the 16th floor. As soon as I was back inside, Mom closed the window and handed me a bowl of ginger soup. I felt the warmth slide from my throat to my stomach, heating it before a cramp hit. Shedding the cold sweater, the icy itch on my skin became more noticeable. Mom had made the bedroom cozy, and crawling into bed, I snuggled away the discomfort. Looking at the drone beside the bed with its red light on, I felt satisfied. It still worked. I drifted off for 3 hours, waking refreshed. It was still dark outside, only 5 in the morning. I couldn't stomach another biscuit, so I just had a quick bite. Mom was sticking warming patches on the drone, hoping it'd last in the cold. By 5:30, everything was set. Dad strapped a phone onto it and opened the bedroom window again. The wind wasn't as strong now, yet the sky was pitch black. Our drone took off somewhat unsteadily. Typically, a drone can fly for 30 to 50 minutes. Ours is a DJI, and considering the cold and lack of maintenance, a conservative guess would be 23 minutes. So, it can only fly for 11 minutes before needing to return. With no wind, DJI drones can hit 80 km per hour, but we're estimating it at 40 km per hour. In those 11 minutes, it can only travel 7 kilometers. After 7 kilometers, we must turn back. But in a small city like Q City, 7 kilometers is plenty. We're only 5 kilometers in a straight line from downtown. The drone provides a real-time video feed. There are many burnt cars parked along the streets. Store glass doors are shattered. The drone flies through dilapidated buildings. It's pitch dark all around, but our drone has night vision, so we can see most of our surroundings. My entire family is glued to the screen, hoping for a glimmer of hope. Then, 10 minutes in, my alarm pierces through the silence of Q City. The Happy New Year tune creates an eerie contrast with the empty streets. Despite imagining a horde of zombies would follow, none appeared. Sweat drips down my neck. My heart beats like a drum. At this point, the drone's battery is halfway drained. My dad is forced to steer it home. No doubt, my plan has failed. I thought the drone's noise would lure the evolved zombies from downtown to our neighborhood. They would fight the newcomers, giving us time to come up with another plan. But nothing happened this time. I was completely wrong. Charging the drone takes 4 hours. The next flight won't be until 10 a.m. By then, the newcomers will be searching the building. It's too late. At 5:53 a.m., the drone lands on our balcony. It's still dark. My mom takes the phone and turns off the alarm that would have gone off in 7 minutes. My dad takes the drone inside to recharge it. Outside, it's black like ink. The thick darkness makes me anxious and breathless. By 7 a.m., the people across the street begin to show signs of waking. None of us can sleep anymore. My dad, silent, goes to reinforce the fire escape outside. My mom studies how to best utilize the sharpened knives. Thankfully, they still need to eat. Morning smoke rises from across the street by 8 a.m. I just hope they take their time. But once again, fate favors them. Half an hour later, 2 people in thick down jackets head to the building behind them. No. 8. Just as I breathe a sigh of relief, another 2 arrive with tools in hand, laughing. They have a clear target, our building. No. 12. What must happen is happening. My chest resonates with tremors. My ears echo the rapid beating of my heart, thump. Thump. Growing louder, almost drowning out all other noise, resonating with my skull. As I stand from my cramped crouch, the indoor air feels suddenly thin. I struggle to keep my eyes open, but everything turns sticky and a deep green, blurry world. Plop, I glance down. My nose is bleeding. Raising my arm and tilting my head back, my mom rinses my nose with water, and the bleeding stops. From downstairs, the sound of the security door being hit can be heard. Lying on the bed, I stare blankly at the white ceiling. My mom notices something off about me and shoves a piece of rock-hard chocolate into my mouth. They say sweet things can awaken dopamine and make you happier. I tastelessly let the chocolate melt in my mouth, but it does somehow lift my mood. I've decided to try again. This is my last-ditch effort, the final fight before our family's demise. 1.5 hours later, at 10 a.m., the drone takes off from our windowsill. This time, the drone has prominent letters on it, SOS. I painted them with my leftover nosebleed. The newcomers are still painstakingly searching for supplies. They've reached the 8th floor, so it's only a matter of time before they get to the 16th. This time, the drone flies flawlessly. It quickly crosses the neighborhood, vanishing from our sight. My hand shakes uncontrollably. I pray that the blood and sound draw in a swarm of zombies, working a miracle. The real-time video feed is even clearer than in the dark. About a minute into the flight, my phone starts playing music. This time, I didn't set an alarm, I made a playlist that plays continually. To avoid alarming anyone else, I even recorded a minute of silence to play at takeoff. Besides adjusting the sound, we also changed the flight path. This time, the drone flew east towards another commercial district. Daytime streets look even more desolate. From the Internationale to Happy New Year to Flight of the Bumblebee, the drone sings along, but no zombies appear on screen. My heart sinks. I don't understand, where have all the zombies gone? Wasn't the explosion in the city evidence of a battle between zombies and humans? The drone's 11-minute flight was almost up. It was time to head back. My dad passed the controls to me and went inside to work on some home defenses. I guided the drone, with a sinking feeling in my heart that felt as cold as ice. On the way back, everything was still eerily quiet. I was determined, so I lowered the drone, hoping it would make more noise nearer the ground. But still, nothing, no humans, no zombies. It looked like our family of 3 was the last group of humans surviving in Q City. While disconnected from society, the place had changed in ways I couldn't even begin to imagine. Loneliness settled in again, pushing me to accept the grim reality. We were truly abandoned. My vision started to blur as I strained my eyes to focus on the screen. The drone zipped forward effortlessly. Just before reaching our community, I guided it to land in a hidden patch of grass. Let it stay here forever, I thought as I closed my eyes. Death may be the endpoint for everyone, but hope is a fiery force within, burning eternally. If we were really overrun, I wish their resources would diminish bit by bit. The drone had too many functions to fall into their hands. The sound of my mom sharpening knives grew louder, unhidden now. My dad, in a rare moment, lit a cigarette. We were all making those final preparations. In the sharp screech of blade sharpening and the suffocating smoke, I opened my eyes. I reached for my phone, thinking to shut it down. The image on the drone screen was still a view of the neighborhood's withered weeds. As I picked it up, the picture moved, a pair of hands appeared. Not decayed or rotten, but bright red from the cold, full of life. I stared, wide-eyed. The hands picked up the drone. Soon, a face in a military cap filled the screen. His mouth moved, he was saying something. The view shifted to a whole army, with bright red flags on their vehicles. We were saved, I knew it. January 17, 2023, just 5 days before Lunar New Year. Outside forces clashed hard with the military. They seemed like old acquaintances, both sides fighting fiercely and precisely. But our army had the upper hand, pushing them back on the first day of fighting. We continued to go without lighting any fires, sticking to bread and compressed biscuits for 2 days. By the 4th day, the outsiders surrendered, unable to hold out any longer. The sound of trumpets echoed through our neighborhood. Hiding behind the curtains, I watched them being led away, hands on their heads, one by one. Outside, heavy snow began to fall. The military worked through the snow, finishing the cleanup. The soldiers, green against the white snow, seemed to bring a spring-like vitality. It was hard to describe the emotion, but my heart felt tight. My mom's eyes welled with tears, unable to hold back. Slowly, I realized this was the bittersweet relief of surviving through adversity. The military quickly cleared our building. Low-level zombies in the hallway were easily dealt with. We sat together in the living room. We hadn't dared to burn coal at home these days. During the daytime, we'd wear down jackets. At night, electric blankets and handy warm packs kept us cozy. Now that the threat was gone, we were bold enough to start burning coal for heat again. We moved the charcoal fire from the bedroom to the living room. During these past weeks, from my lookout behind the curtains, my hands suffered from frostbite, itching and aching. My mom had just wrapped my hands with a warm towel when there was a knock at the fire door. They had arrived. My dad opened the security door. He told my mom and me to stay put while he grabbed a weapon he'd sharpened beforehand and headed out to speak with them in the hallway. I was sort of dazed. It had been 186 days since the zombie outbreak. Our trust in people was gone. During this chaotic time, relying on ourselves was all we could do. The outside officer seemed to expect this. They calmly accepted the reality of the disaster's aftermath. Restoring public faith wouldn't happen overnight. They couldn't change our minds. The best they could do was swiftly restore social order. With hope among the people, the country stands a chance. They brought us news from the outside. The zombie outbreak was a worldwide disaster. Our country was hit especially hard. The government had been working tirelessly to save everyone. They had obliterated the last zombies in the southern region, just outside Q City. There were only 3 cities left to clear up nationwide. The explosions we'd heard at night were part of Operation Pishio, a joint effort with civilian organizations. Our drone hadn't attracted zombies because there weren't any left in Q City. Further details about the civilian groups were sparse. I recalled the outsiders' supplies and weapons from before, understanding the situation wasn't as simple as described. But for ordinary residents like us, it wasn't important. Q City had turned into a ghost town over these 6 months. The government set up temporary shelters in each provincial capital. Most survivors relocated there. Our neighborhood, distant from the city center and newly developed, had a lower priority for notifications. Likely because of its low occupancy, raising less heat. Using military drone thermal imaging, they had ruled out any living residents here. At this point, the guy outside said, "I'm sorry." My dad, noticing his distress, comforted him instead. After a while, he continued his tale. Our low-flying drone had already caught their attention. They noticed something off on its second flight today, an SOS signal tilted and skewed. They couldn't be sure if it was a genuine plea for help or a possible trap. Not willing to let folks down, they covertly tailed the drone to our neighborhood, watching and waiting for the right moment. I'm leaning against the security door, eavesdropping on their conversation. I hear my dad using pliers to slowly bend the wire open. The stairwell's fire door, which hasn't been used in ages, makes a grating noise as it's pushed open after the wire is removed. Since the zombie outbreak, this is the first time we're opening our fire exit. I hear my dad speak, "I trust you guys, I trust the country." The soldiers outside seem surprised as he opens the door, and my dad continues. "It's New Year's Eve. Come in and have some dumplings." Right after New Year's Eve, at 6 a.m., we set off for the shelter. We took what rice, flour, grains, and oil we could from home. After 6 months, there wasn't much left anyway. The most valuable items were the seeds we saved. Word is, the shelter desperately needs these, and each one can be traded for a lot of supplies. As for the ripe vegetables, they were all used for dumplings yesterday. With so many people, we finished off all the greens we grew in just one night. I didn't want to take everything with us. I wanted to leave a backup plan. After experiencing this apocalypse, there's an inevitable shift in mindset. Before getting on the bus, I noticed the shocked expressions of the outsiders who were detained. They couldn't believe there were survivors in our neighborhood. One tough-looking guy gave me a cold stare. I didn't know if he was thinking about getting back at me. It didn't matter anymore to me. Among so many soldiers, I felt a sense of safety like never before. On the way to H City, the cityscape along the route was in ruins, so I closed my eyes to avoid looking. When we finally left Q City, I took one last look at the city I hadn't left in 187 days from the window. I hoped it would recover soon. Just like us humans. The flame of life burns fiercely, sweeping across like a dragon. Hope arises from existence. Where there is existence, there is hope. Where there is hope, there is light. The end.